It's been a while since I've done one of these, and it's about Smash again. Not the players, not any of the how the community acts, which I will get into in a different video, which is probably not just going to be a podcast episode because that's some really serious shit happening, but just about a tournament this time. Not one that's already happened, but rather one that's coming up. And for some context, Japan for a few years has been incredibly dominant in Ultimate. They are undoubtedly the best region, and I'm glad that I was one of the people who was saying that they were the best as far back as 2019. Because they, especially at this point, have just come to prove that. With the results that Japanese players get at high-level events, they are far and away better than NA, better than EU. And I know I already said NA, which includes Canada and Mexico, but with Latin America being stronger than the States, Japan stronger than them, Japan stronger than Canada, they're just easily the best region in Smash, and it sucks that they're the only Asian region that really has a lot of high-level players, because I would love to see more players from, like, someone from Korea competing, or someone from Thailand, someone from, someone from India, because it'll be genuinely cool to see more countries get more representation in the community, but it's mostly just Latin America, Canada, the States, Europe, and Japan, which, to be fair, those are the regions that have the most competitors in general, and not just high level, but still sucks not to see more from other countries. However, back to the main point. So, the specific tournament I'm wanting to talk about is Kagaribi 13. Now, Kagaribi has been going on for a long time, since at least the quarantine era, and Kagaribi over the past few years has been my favorite tournament series to watch. Production quality is always great. I've loved the top 8s that they have, especially last year, because we had, like, old, quote-unquote, old Japan facing off against, quote-unquote, new Japan, because the top 8 was Shuton, T, Ken, and Zakare, and then for the older half, or been competing for longer, not necessarily just older players. And then the other half was Mia, Hurt, Tamapi, Daifuku, and Akala, which all had their big rises in the scene after COVID and quarantine. So it was really amazing to see that, but even in Kagaribi 9, Kagaribi 10, Kagaribi 11, it's been a blast every time they run that series to see everything going on. And now, with Kagaribi 13, we officially have the new biggest Smash Ultimate tournament ever. Just in the history of the game. And keep in mind, this game had its slot at EVO. Granted, that was in 2019, and there's been some licensing issues that have stopped it since, but it's still bigger than EVO got that one year. Keep that in mind. Most top 50 entrants any tournament in the game has ever boasted. And that is amazing, especially when so many people will be preaching that Ultimate's dying. And another thing to keep in mind, this tournament has no prizing. Due to Japan's laws against gambling, because for some reason winnings at a tournament that aren't, like, it's like saying, if you can beat me, I'll give you this much, but it's going to be a fair fight. And that's still considered gambling, but that's an entirely different point. Anyway, it has no prize pool, just bragging rights. Whoever wins the tournament wins the biggest tournament in Ultimate history. And that's that. Now, not only is this tournament the biggest tournament in Smash Ultimate history, not only does it have the most top 50 entrants in Smash Ultimate history, but this tournament created, like, okay, for those who do not know about how the rankings work, there are a few different ranks of tournaments that there are. D tiers, which are much smaller, like sub... I think regionals are like C tier, though. Anyway, D tournaments are like the smallest ranking. They don't include locals, but a lot of stuff above that. Then C tiers will be like the regionals, the things that will get a lot of people from one area, like, let's say, Tri-State, or the Southwest, or Kansai in Japan, specifically Kansai. But then, B tiers are like nationals. So, you may have a player or two flying out from a different country. You may have players from, like, across the entire US, let's say, attending. And after nationals and super nationals, we finally get to majors, which majors are where a lot of the discussion starts. Because winning one of these almost guarantees you a spot on the top 50. And the only time where I've seen that not be the case is, ironically enough, the 2024.2 season, which would be the last half of last year, where Crepe Soleil won UFA and did not get into the top 50, just missing out of 55th. But I'm sure you see why that's so important now. Because a super major win, which is the next tier above major, automatically, or I don't know if it automatically gets someone in the top 20, but I know that in the first half of 2023, it did with my third favorite player, Shiny Mark, because he finally won his first major, which was, coincidentally enough, not just a major, but a super major. But he hadn't won a major before that. Anyway, his first major win being S Factor 11, which was a super major, and it got him 19th in the world with a few other tournaments he attended, which was absolutely amazing. So glad to see one of my favorite players get that high in the rankings. Anyway, with that, there was still one level above Super Major that just a handful of tournaments have been able to reach the level of. And that is Premier Tier. Granted, 2024 had quite a bit of premieres, but that was great because there were a lot of people who were not just pushing it off, they were putting their all into the P tiers, which is great to see because they matter the most for rankings. There, Leo, the formerly the former 4-time best player in the world, got 25th last season because of a 9th place and then a 33rd place at 2 P tiers. So you can see why it's a pretty fucking big deal. Now, granted, he did underperform at a few other tournaments, but not many. And not only has Kagaribi 13 reached Premier Tier, it broke it. And what do I mean by that? Well, Kagaribi 13 has reached such a high level with entrant count and top players that it created another tier, Premier Plus. And wait, what? Premier Plus isn't the highest tier? What do you mean this created an entire... What? There's a Super Premier now? Okay. So, scratch that. Kagaribi 13 created 2 new entire tiers for how we tier tournaments in Smash Ultimate rankings, which is absolutely huge. This is completely unprecedented, and we haven't seen it since the creation of Premier Tiers shortly after Luminosity Gaming took over the ranking responsibilities and signed a few players at the beginning of 2023, right before Genesis 9 happened. Genesis 9 in 2023 was the first P tier the game had ever seen. And that was the only time we had another level of tournaments added until Kagaribi 13. So, now I'm sure you see how huge this is, because we only had the D, C, B, A, and then S tiers, which S would be super major, until 2023. So that was for a solid 4 years. And then we had P tier for 2 years. And already now we have P plus and SP, which is completely unheard of. This tournament is going to be absolutely amazing to watch. And one thing that I'm definitely going to try to do, I'm trying my best to see how much it would be for a trip there and back. Not for myself. I know I absolutely will not be able to afford it. But I'm going to try to donate a few $100s to Shiny Mark to see if I could possibly assist in getting him to attend. Because I'm not going to be able to do it myself for sure, because I don't have the money. But if he starts like GoFundMe, and he has a big enough reach to where I do believe that quite a few players would genuinely donate and try to help him travel. But I alone am confident that I will drop at least a few hundred if he does want to go, and it's just a monetary struggle. Because he will do amazing. Japan does not know the Pika matchup at all. That was shown at Genesis X2's pre-local. But I'm going to do whatever I can to see Shiny Mark compete. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Sorry it's been a while since I've done this, but with how big Kagaribi 13 is going to be, there's no way I could just keep my mouth shut about this. It's fucking amazing to see in an era where so many people are calling Ultimate a dead game, saying that it's losing all its player count and passion, that we have a new biggest tournament. And that's all that I could ever want with a game like this.